Shuklambaradharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavanam Dhyayet Sarvavighnopashantaye. Om. We were just seeing in the fourth chapter, we saw the first shloka and we were just reading the second shloka. The second shloka was Evam Parampara Praptam Imam Rajarshayo Viduhu Sa Kale Neha Mahata Yogo Nashtah Parantapa. So Krishna is saying, Krishna means Lord Bhagavan. Bhagavan himself is saying, that is that universal being. He is saying that this particular teaching, this teaching relating to what is called pravritti dharma and also nivritti dharma. That is, pravritti means how a person has to conduct himself in the world. And nivritti means that path of knowledge. So this path of action and path of knowledge, which is essentially, that is the sum and substance of all the Vedic teaching. I had told in the beginning to Sun God, he told to somebody else, he told to somebody else. So he is telling that what is called Vamsha Kathanam. In fact, there is a technical word for that. The commentators, they have used that word, Vamsha Kathanam. Vamsha Kathanam means like we are having a Vamsha. I belong to so-and-so Vamsha. So my father was so-and-so, my grandfather was so-and-so, his father was so-and-so. Some people, some of us, we draw some family line, what is called Vamsha Vruksham. Vamsha Vruksham, suppose we just go back and back and back to whatever we can go, and maybe after a few generations, beyond a few generations, we just do not know what they were. Maybe about 5-6 generations we may go, and beyond that we may not be able to go. So that is called Vamsha Vruksha or family tree. So there is a similar family tree even for knowledge. That is Vidya Vamsham it is called. Vidya Vamsham means, suppose so-and-so started it and he passed it on to so-and-so, he passed it on to so-and-so. That is what we are very, very familiar with shlokas like Narayana Samarambham, So Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmadacharya Paryantam, Vande Guru Paramparam we say. That is Narayana Samarambham. It was started with Lord Narayana himself. Shankaracharya Madhyamam, somewhere in the middle Shankaracharya came. Asmadacharya Paryantam, down to my own Guru. And if you are not in Shankara Sampradaya, okay, somebody else will say Vyasa Yamuna Madhyamam, Vyasa and Yamunacharya. So they are the people. And from them Asmadacharya Paryantam, the same tradition it came down to me. Up to me it has come, and I bow to all these gurus. So there is a prayer that is bowing to all the gurus. Asmadacharya Paryantam, Vande Guru Paramparam, that Guru Parampara. So this is called Vidya Vamsham. That is family. There are two types of families. That is, there is what is called Vidya Vamsha. There is another Vamsha called Jati, by virtue of being born in a particular family line. So that family tree relating to biological family tree and this knowledge tree, knowledge family tree. So like that, that is Vamsha Kathanena. Why is this Vamsha Kathanam done? Usually if you see any text, this Vamsha Kathanam is told at the end of the teaching. Vamsha Kathanam is not told in the beginning. If you see the Upanishads, at the end of the Upanishad, not in all Upanishads, in some. Okay, this was told by so and so. Again, it was told to so and so. He told so and so. He told so and so. That family line, Vidya Vamsham, will be described, and that description is usually at the end. So the idea of Krishna in giving this family tree is suggesting that what all has to be told has been told. There is nothing more. But now Arjuna is having some more doubts. So in order to clarify some more doubts, the whole Bhagavad Gita has come. So the second shloka is saying, Evam Parampara Praptam, from one to another, one to another, one to another, that Vamsha, family tree, that Vidya Vamsham. Imam Rajarshayo Viduhu, Rajarshaya. This is what is an important point. Rajarshi is Raja and at the same time Rishi. Raja plus Rishi becomes Rajarshi. That is a Sandhi. Rajanaschate Rishayascha. That is, they were kings. At the same time, they were great enlightened people. Rishayaha. 2 in 1. That is 2 in 1. He is at the same time a Raja and also a Rishi. He is a 2 in 1 person. That is, Rishi. What is the Rishi? Rishi means a person who sees the truth. Rishi, it means actually a person who sees. A person who sees means a seer, a person who sees the truth. The king is a person who is a philosopher himself. Philosophy is, what is philosophy? Philos and sophis. Philos means love. Sophis means truth. Philosopher means lover of truth. That means he has no prejudices. He has no preconceived notions. He doesn't want to support an ideology. He doesn't want to support a particular political philosophy. He doesn't want to support a particular caste or creed or community or religion. He only wants the truth. He only seeks the truth. So that is where Upanishads stand in that category. Upanishads, because Upanishads, they do not talk about a particular god. They do not say, okay, you follow this religion. They have no agenda to start a religion. Their only approach is to investigate into the nature of reality in a very, very rational manner. So that is what we see in the Upanishads. So here, Rajarshi is one such. Rajarshi is a person, a philosopher king. And in fact, in Western literature also, we come across this word philosopher king, where there is a great philosopher called Plato, the Western Greek philosopher called Plato. He wrote a book called The Republic. That is a very famous book. And in that book, it is basically visualizing an ideal kingdom, how an ideal republic should be. It is actually a visionary document, let us say. A visionary document, an ideal king should be a philosopher king. So Plato, by all count, it looks like that as though he had some sort of interaction with the Indian scholars. It looks like that. Plato and his guru was Socrates. Both of them, they had some sort of relation with the Indian teachers of that time, because only these people, only Socrates and Plato, they talked in a slightly different tone, and all other Western philosophers, they speak in a totally different tone. That is, Plato's own disciple Aristotle speaks in a totally different way. Whereas Plato speaks sometimes, it is somewhat so Plato talks is somewhat closer to what our Upanishads speak. Upanishads, of course, we have a long tradition of a particular line of thinking. This particular line of thinking about what is mind and about what is reality, what we see in the external world, is it true or false? Suppose Vedanta, the basic question is, you are seeing something in front of you, and what you see is only limited by the structure of your eye, the capacity of your eye to see whatever is the bandwidth of light, and your capacity to listen is limited to the limitations of the ears. What is the bandwidth? So many decibels only it can listen, and beyond those decibels, it cannot listen. So what we consider as truth is something which is limited by the limitations of our own senses. By my senses, what they can perceive, we are thinking, and I think it is a truth. So whether the world which is in front of us, is it true or false? So this discussion we find in Plato. We don't find it anywhere else. Plato, he has got a famous theory of caves. And he says the human being is somewhat like a person sitting in a cave, looking into the cave, and behind him there is a light. Behind him there is a light, and some images are moving around, and then he is seeing those images. And he sees that images, he is seeing those images and thinking that those images are true. So that is the Plato's theory of idea of cave. In fact, you can just go to Google also. You can go to, for example, YouTube, and Plato's theory of caves. If you see, you will see that what Plato says is somewhat similar to what our Upanishads say. The world in front of us, how far is it real? What is the degree of reality of the external world? And this is what the modern science also is talking about. Only Plato and Socrates talked about it, and nobody else. So that is why it is told by several people that Plato probably had some sort of interaction with the Indian thinkers of that time. So anyway, Plato wrote a book called The Republic, as I was saying, and in that Republic he talks about a philosopher king. An ideal republic should be ruled by a philosopher king. That was the ideal of Plato. And unfortunately, history shows that such philosopher kings did not come up in Western society. That is what, in fact, if you read a book called The Story of Philosophy by a very well-known writer called Will Durant, he has written a book called The Story of Philosophy. In that story of philosophy, he talks about this philosopher king and how this ideal which Plato had in mind, that ideal was never realized in Western history. So that is what is the irony of that society. But if we see in the commentary to this particular shloka, the commentators, they have written a huge, there's so many kings, the wise kings, the people who ruled in a very, very judicious way, in a very, very dharmic way. It is not as though Western society did not have. Maybe there may be some people, for example, King Solomon is said to be a very, very wise king. So such people may be there. We do not know. But here in our society also, there are lot many people about whom we see. That is, commentators mention, for example, Janaka, Ashwapati, Mandhata. We also know the characters like Harishchandra, Chibi, and those people, and very many kings whose stories were described in Mahabharata. If you go to Mahabharata and if you see the Vanaparva is where these Pandavas, they spent their 12 years duration in the forest. When they were there in the forest, several sages used to go to them and console them. They used to tell them stories about very great kings of the past, how they also suffered, and ultimately they came out successful. So that sort of some sort of emotional assurance, some sort of assurance they were giving to Pandavas. So this Vanaparva is a narration. It is a collection of so many stories about so many kings of the past. So in fact, if somebody has done some study of emperors of India, probably one has to read the Mahabharata. One has to read the Mahabharata, that Vanaparva particularly. In that Vanaparva, you get a whole long list of kings. Harishchandra, Nala, and there is a story of Rama also there. Ramayana also, in a few brief sargas, in a few brief adhyayas, it is there in Mahabharata. So anyway, we have a long list of these Rajarshis. So India had the tradition of Rajarshis. Until recently, we have been seeing very great, highly judicious kings. Then Krishna is saying, Imam Rajarshayo viduhu sa kaleneha mahata yogo nashtah parantapa. Oh my dear friend, this particular yoga which I have taught long ago, and it continued for a long time. But over a period of time, that thing declined because naturally in human mind, a lot of weakness, due to so many weaknesses and all that, the same respect for dharma was not there. The same shraddha towards dharma was not there. That shraddha gradually declined. Sa kalena iha mahata kalena. With the long passage of time, mahata kalena means by the long passage of time, that particular yoga has now become very weak. And now I am telling that yoga to you. He is saying in the third sloka, Sayevayam mayatedya yoga prokta puratanaha bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hyetaduttamam. So he says, Sayeva ayam mayatedya yoga prokta. That is, I am now telling the very same yoga I told in the very beginning to son and others. So that came down, parampara. Parampara, there is also a word called sampradaya. Sampradaya, probably I explained this word also. Sampradaya. Da, to dine, dane, da means to give. Pra means very well. Pradhanam. Sampradhanam means very well, effectively, very effectively transferring, very effectively transmitting. Not only transferring, but transmitting. Sampradaya is from father to son, from father to son, from father to son. It is somewhat like a relay race. Suppose I have read something, I have learned suppose some Geeta or something else. It is my duty to tell my son also what is relevant in the Bhagavad Gita. At least a few things, in the most important things in the Bhagavad Gita, I have to transmit to that fellow. And that man, he will transmit to his children. So that is his duty. So my duty is to transmit to my son, because my father did it. To my father, my grandfather did it. So like that is what is called sampradaya. That is effectively transmitting knowledge from father to son, from father to son. It is somewhat like a relay race. I compare it to a relay race. In that relay race, somebody holds the candle and then runs 100 meters, hands it over to somebody. He again hands it over, he runs and then hands it over to somebody. It is somewhat like that. So that's sampradaya. So he says, the same yoga I have now told to you. Maya prokta puratanaha. Whatever in that olden days, at that time, point of time, whatever I told Surya, I am now telling you because bhaktosi me sakha chet. You are my devotee and you are also my friend. So that is the reason why I have told you this rahasyam hyetad uttamam. This uttamam rahasyam. So this Bhagavad Gita, not only this Bhagavad Gita in the all this Vedanta, is also said to be rahasyam. Rahasyam does not mean that it should not be told to anybody. Rahasyam has to be, it only means that it has to be properly protected. It has to be told to somebody who is really having some interest, not somebody, some wayward person who is trying to ridicule, who is trying to undermine, who is trying to criticize, who is bent upon criticizing, who is bent upon finding fault. It has to be told to somebody who is really having Shraddha. If you tell somebody who is really having some Shraddha, it will be well preserved. Otherwise, it will not be preserved. It will not be preserved. And on the other hand, the people will be wasting their time and your time also in ridiculing it. So rahasyam means not that it should not be told to anybody. Rahasyam is that which has to be protected properly. So in fact, we are going to see this word in 9th chapter also. Idam guhyam sanatanam. Guhyam. Guhya again means guhu. Guhu means samvarane. That is to protect well, to keep it in safe custody, somewhat like that. So rahasyam hyetaduttamam. Then now Arjuna is now having a doubt. Naturally, like all of us, like we do have a doubt. Suppose in our contemporary society, somebody comes and says, I am avatar of Krishna. There are some people, some Swamijis are there, who say, yes, I am incarnation of Krishna. Somebody comes and says, I am incarnation of Shiva himself. So like that, if somebody says, then naturally we also question, how is it? How are you incarnation of Krishna? How are you incarnation of Shiva? So Arjuna probably, he also had that temptation to ask. Or probably Vyasa, sage Vyasa might have introduced in order to clarify to us, to the reader. So Arjuna anyway, Arjuna uvacha, aparam bhavato janma, param janma vivasvatah, kathametadvijaniyam tvamadau proktavaniti. So he is saying, aparam bhavato janma, you are now born, you are born only recently. Probably you and Krishna, we do not know what is the age gap between Krishna and Arjuna. You and I, we grew up together, we played together, and I know that you are born to so-and-so, and we also played. So how is it? How do you say that you told Lord, the sun god, and then sun god told somebody, etc., etc.? Aparam bhavato janma, your janma is much, much later, and param janma vivasvatah, and the sun, the origin of sun is so old. Then kathametad vijaniyam, how can I think, how can I understand? Kathametad vijaniyam means, how do I understand? He is not seriously questioning or debating. How do I understand? You please tell me what is your reality. Because maybe we do not know. Maybe even today there may be some god men really we do not know. Somebody comes and says, I have seen people who say, at least the devotees say, the Swamijis have not told me. The devotees say, oh, he is the incarnation of Shiva himself. He is the incarnation of Krishna himself. The devotees say. Anyway, so kathametad, how do I understand? Tvam adau proktavaniti, that you told it in the beginning to Lord Sun. How do I understand? Then Krishna is telling a general principle. Now what is it? That is 5th shloka. Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacharjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam vetha parantapa. Bahuni me vyatitani janmani. So when was the Srushti, when did the Srushti begin? So that the basic question is that, when did the Srushti begin? We cannot say, okay, it started a few thousand years ago. We cannot say. Srushti, it is said to be originless. Originless means it is something which is anadi. Anadi is what? You just cannot go back and back and back. You just go back in time. Just go back and back and back. The more you go back, it's okay. Even then, Srushti was there. And Srushti, what is meant by Srushti? Srushti does not mean suddenly suppose some god appearing and then he is just doing some creation for a few days and again taking rest. It is not Srushti. Srushti means this Vedanta, or logically if you evaluate, what is that ultimate reality? The ultimate reality is that supreme reality called consciousness. And when that consciousness, when was that born? There is no origin for that. It is always there. It is something which is eternal. And that thing, it is eternally having this power called creation. And that consciousness appearing as this whole universe, it is something which is also eternal. So which means it is something which is eternal. And over a period of time, and I think I told you about what the Upanishads talk about, how this, the whole evolution has come. The whole evolution, again to repeat, it comes from Akasha, Atmanaha Akasha Sambhuta. Initially, the first manifestation was the space, and then the space, then air, then fire, then water, then earth. And on that earth, the animal kingdom, not animal kingdom, the plant kingdom came up first. Oshadhi Bhyo Annam, that plant kingdom became the fruit for the human beings. So that is that whole chain. So in that chain, the whole thing has evolved. So this is something which is there for eternally. It has been there, and then eternally evolution is going on and on. Even now evolution is going on. It is not as though this is the final frame of a human being. Maybe the scientists now say, in fact, the modern scientists, some of the philosophers, they have also speculated as to what will be the body shape of a human being after a few thousand years. Maybe his head may be too big, his thighs may be too big. So people have visualized. For example, a person called Henry Bergson, he has written something about creative evolution, and scientists they keep on guessing as to what will be the picture of a human being after a few thousand years, or maybe after say 10,000 years. So like that. So bahuni me vyatitani. So this evolution is going on, and so many innumerable lives have gone on. But unfortunately, you do not know, because you are limited by your this framework of karma and dharma and adharma, etc. Dharma, adharma. I am above that framework of dharma and adharma. So I am somebody who is something different from you. I remember all that, but you do not remember those things. Of course, we'll discuss it tomorrow also. Harihi Om Tat Sat.